What is up, everybody? Joseph here from Rad Parenting with my co-host.
Anea.
And we are here in the studio, hanging out, coffee in hand. And I want to let everyone know that this year is, it's been a blast with doing Rad Parenting. We're coming up on like 50 episodes.
And are close to our 1 year anniversary, which is ridiculous and exciting. It's exciting, and the emails keep coming in. And all I can say is that 2017 is going to be an amazing year on so many different levels, so many guests planned, so many different topics planned. And as we always say at the top of the show, keep the emails coming in. radparenting@gmail.com. That is the best place to get a hold of us, whether you want us to answer any of your questions, forward on any of your questions to any past guests. We do that all the time. Also, it's a great place to just ask Anea a question, and Anea will hit you back. I will.
Which is amazing because
it'll take a minute because Joe will have to forward me said email. And
exactly. And then I answer a lot of the emails too, but mine are usually when someone's like, dude, I'm in a band and I have a kid. What do I do? Like, I can answer other things besides that, you guys, but it's always the bro that asks me, I want to still be in my band and tour, and I'm a dad.
Can you help me? Can I be on your label?
Exactly. Yeah. Can I be on Side One Dummy Records? I get a lot of those. Today's show, super, super excited about it. Anea and I have been talking about doing this for a while. We've mentioned it to you guys over the last couple of months. Back in the studio, our guest and friend, Dr. Patricia.
Hi, guys. How
Welcome.
You guys doing?
I'm staring right at you.
So glad to be here, Dr. Patricia online.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go into the topic of today's show, can you let our listeners know again your background, what you're all about?
Sure. Dr. Patricia Fuchsia. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I have a private practice in Santa Monica, California. And my doctoral work is in human sexuality. So I hold a PhD in all aspects of human sexuality.
Wow, that's where the doctor comes in.
Yes, it is.
I liked earlier when I said, do I call you Dr. Patricia? And then you thought, well, like in real life? And you're like, I'm like, no, on the show.
Yes, I do go by Dr. Patricia.
Love it. Love it. Today's topic, Anea and I had been talking about for a few weeks. We wanted to get you in here and have a conversation about teaching our kids early on about consent. I know Anea has been talking about a bill that's being passed in California. Is it California High School?
Yeah, California, and there's a few other states that we're hoping are going to come online. And so in California, it actually takes effect as of January. So
and the name of the bill?
It's SB 695, and it's the affirmative consent education for high school students. So it will effectively mean that for all public high schools in the state of California, there must be a component, typically as part of their health curriculum, that will actually overtly teach about affirmative consent. And just for anybody who doesn't know what that is, affirmative consent is an enthusiastic yes, as opposed to the absence of a no, which is very, very important distinction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think today's show, what we want to dive right into is even before your kids are in high school, and this is awesome, this bill is being passed. I can't believe it's taken this long to actually talk about, hey, if you want to have sex, let's make sure both parties are down for that. It's crazy to think that finally in 2017 this is going to be happening, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to get there, but I want to start at the very beginning for our listeners. Toddlers, you just had your first, son or daughter, and how you can teach your kids right away to be that advocate for themselves and for their bodies. And having both of you guys here, I felt like what a great place to start. Like, so let's just kind of rewind and start with how teaching your kids consent and how they're the masters of their own bodies, and also diving a little bit into. I know the three of us, before the show started, we were just talking about kind of the way we were raised, and I know some of our listeners are raised the same way we were, and that hey, make sure you hug Grandpa. Oh, hey, come on, you met Uncle Bob. Go over there and shake his hand.
Right.
Those things are the way I was raised.
Yep.
Hey, so-and-so's here. You go over and shake his hand. Give your Aunt Helen a hug, all that stuff. I didn't have an Aunt Helen. I don't know. But anyway, but if Aunt Helen would have showed up, I would have been running over there. And, a lot of sitting on people's laps, a lot of hugs, a lot of and thank God I had a great family and everything was super cool. But today I just want to kind of dive into, let's teach our kids early on to about their bodies and about those feelings.
And in fact, we have to. And I think it's really important. So for the people that are listening, they're like, oh, this is going to be about teenagers. I only have a little newborn or whatever. It's very difficult, and those of us who do have teenagers know that it only becomes progressively more difficult to have open a direct, honest communication with our kids. And so it really is important to lay the groundwork when you're talking about an individual developing a sense of personal agency over themselves and specifically their bodies. That has to come early on. And so that's really where we want to begin today, is to talk about how we begin from the time they are itty bitty, with all the subtle messages and the not so subtle messages that are ultimately going to help to give our kids the tools. None of us wants to see our daughters sexually assaulted or raped. And just so everybody knows, right now, the stats are one of every two teenage girls will experience some form of sexual assault. So, and you don't want your sons to be accused of sexual assault, particularly when a lot of, let me be careful here with the words I'm using, but I think it's fair to say that at least some of the time, the intention is not how it ultimately plays out. And it has a lot to do that if these teenagers who are supercharged and caught up in the moment, if they had a language and an understanding that they knew that they could use together to communicate what they actually want, what they actually need, there would be a lot fewer problems. And that's really what we want to talk about today, is what we can do as parents.
Absolutely. So the first thing, Dr. Patricia, how do we maneuver in this world?
Well, the first thing is we want to be able to teach our children what yes means, what no means. And that can often be a confusing message as parents. You talked about relatives, and I think that's a really important topic, forced affection. When we are telling our children, go give someone a hug, or there's auntie or grandma or whatever it might be, we need to stop and ask our children what they're comfortable for. Do you want to? Are you okay with the hug? Would you rather shake their hand? How do you feel about giving them a kiss goodbye? Not just assuming and pushing them in that direction, because that takes away their consent. You're robbing your children of it, and we do that often as parents without giving it a second thought. We're taught often, respect our elders, and we share that with our children as well.
If I can just
Sure.
on that, that's a really great, strong place to start. So the message that we're essentially giving our kids when we just say, we don't check in with them, to your point, and say, would you like to go give so-and-so a hug? Are you okay with Uncle Bob giving you a hug? When we override that and we don't teach them that they have a voice to be the determining agent in that situation, then they take that forward and they think, oh, well, I guess I should say yes because I don't want to offend anybody. And so we end up having our children say yes or not say no, when really their comfort level is that they don't want to engage.
And I got to say that I totally believe in gut feelings.
Absolutely.
And I know that there isn't, I just believe in this day and age, for my life personally, anytime I've got a gut feeling about something and felt uncomfortable, I've dealt with that, and I've acted accordingly to how I feel. And what you're saying is, if your children are in a situation like that and they don't want to hug grandma or grandpa or give so-and-so, the stranger that they've met once in their lifetime, because think about it, these people are walking into your house, and the holidays and everything, you got all these people coming into your house, and everyone's supposed to be, these new people in your life, you're supposed to just hug them and everything. But what you're saying is, when you're telling your child to do that, it was such a great thing, robbing them of this moment of protecting themselves and this forced affection. I've never even heard that term before.
Right.
That's such a great term.
Well, because you want them to be able to trust their feelings. And I love what you said, Joe, is gut feelings. That's their instincts. Children have them. You want to teach your child, go with your instincts. We want to know what you feel. Help them to read somebody's body language. Is someone happy, sad? They know as little children, and you want them to honor that and move with that direction rather than the parent guiding them. So often children are taught that adults know better, they're smarter, they're stronger, they're bigger, listen to them, you know less, instead of honoring where they are. And that's an important message that parents need to know.
It is. And think about how many incidents so historically, and these are still being, processed in courts, around the world, where there have been situations where people in positions of authority have abused children, and those children did not feel like they could speak up and say, no, or go and tell another adult to provide safety. And so they end up facing literally a lifetime of trying to heal those really damaging
So what we're really
experiences.
talking about right now is, at a young age, teach your son or daughter to deal with their feelings, but to develop the skill of doing that. This is really a skill that we're talking about. No different than
when something doesn't feel right.
No different than running out in the front yard with your son and going, hey, let's throw the ball around because I want you to be better at that. Hey,
That's right.
Let's work on your homework together. What we're talking about right now is teaching your children at a young age to develop the skill to be able to say how they feel about hugging and giving that affection to the person.
Right. And what's really important is not only to teach our children to express it, but first we must teach them how to identify what is it that they're feeling, and how do we do that as parents? A really simple exercise that I use often is the little feeling charts that they have that have little happy faces, and they say happy, sad, anxious, nervous. When a child is feeling something, you say, point to it. What is it called? It needs to be given a name, not I don't feel good. I feel, this doesn't feel right. Give it a name. And I think as parents, that is critical to work with our children to identify first, what is it called? Is it anger? Is it excitement? Is it sadness? Put a name to it and then teach them how to express it. And that's a very strong starting point. And I also think it's very important that we don't contradict our children's feelings. So often our children they know when they're tired, they know when they're hungry, they know when they're cold. They can use those words. And if we say, no, you just ate, you're not hungry, or how could you be hot? The heat,
AC's on.
Exactly. Or
afraid.
How
about
afraid?
Afraid?
Yeah.
Like it being,
don't be a scaredy
ridiculous.
cat,
That's right.
something like that.
And what we might say is, oh, come on, that's your Uncle Bob. He's a great guy.
Correct.
Come on.
Well, can I just share a quick story? And I've never shared this publicly, but when I was about 4 years old, there was this man, I'm not even going to say his name, but he was part of sort of my grandparents' community or whatever. And I can remember my grandparents' living room had like a big picture window. It was one of those just like, kind of standard bungalows. And I saw him coming up the walkway, and I was so terrified of this man. And honestly, I have no recollection of him ever doing anything, harmful to me. But I was so afraid of him that I tucked myself behind the couch up against the wall, like squeezed myself in there. And I can remember my Aunt Sonia handing me candies like behind the couch because I wouldn't come out. And I thought, what the... There was something, like whether it was he'd said something to me at some point, or I had seen him interact with maybe another child that I knew was inappropriate.
Intuitively, you knew it was not safe.
That's right. I knew this person wasn't safe for me to go to that degree. And I'm sure, like, to my parents' credit, they didn't drag me out. They didn't say, you need to be polite. You get out here right now. They let me stay hidden behind the couch. But I mean, kids have big feelings that need to be honored, because if we keep talking them out of it, then as they get older, when they have those feelings, they're going to talk themselves out of those intuitive
That
feelings.
goes back to what we just said, learning the skill, being comfortable with having those conversations with your children. Why does so-and-so make you feel uncomfortable?
That's right.
Not being ashamed, letting your child express, I feel uncomfortable when so-and-so's here. I don't know what it is, Mom. I don't know what it is, Dad, but I get a feeling. And letting that feeling be able to sit with your child, and also
honoring it.
And honoring it. I was just, those words were
Excellent.
right on my, Dr.
Excellent.
Patricia just took it out of my mouth. Boom. I love that. Do you ever feel that you do not have enough time in the day to do what you're supposed to get done? You're going to work. You're maybe trying to hit the gym, but you forgot that, I got to pick so-and-so up from daycare. I got to get my dad over to his doctor's appointment. I wanted to pick up the house before I left. Wow, check it out. How am I going to get everything done? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Go to care.com. Care.com. Care.com is the world's largest digital marketplace for finding and managing family care. That is right. Family care needs can be unpredictable. You got sick kids. You need someone to stay home. Man, both parents are out there trying to make a living. Your kids get sick. Who's going to stay home? Who's going to miss out on that cash? Now you go to care.com and they'll have someone for you that can look after your kids. Don't stress your life away. Seriously, most working parents worry about their kids every minute of the day. You're more at ease and more focused when you know your kids or your parents or even your pets are well cared for. Best part is this, care.com provides access to a variety of background check options you can purchase to help make sure that you're making the best hiring decision. That's my favorite part right there. they're letting you know there's a million different things for you to check out on the background check options so you know who's going to be there with your kids or with your parents or with your pet taking care of the situation. Care.com. Check it out now. If you go to care.com right now, you ready for this? To save 30% off care.com premium membership, visit care.com/rad parenting when you subscribe, and you're going to get 30% off. Like I said, the world's moving a million miles an hour. You just want to take care of your kids and all the responsibilities. Let care.com help. Hey, one thing I want to throw out there, and I was just thinking when you were talking about the gentleman that was walking up, the stairs and you saw him. I think also I want to throw it on the table as parents, as mothers and fathers going to other people's homes. I know when I roll into someone's house, I always make a joke about it. I look more like a dude on parole than like the baseball coach or, and my son's even said to me, I remember one time my son said to me, he goes, Dad, you show up on school and you're dressed in black and you got the hair and the sunglasses and, sometimes the kids and I never thought of that. I was like, yeah, but I'm your dad and they know and it's cool I'm here. And I've really picked up on when I'm rolling around to take the sunglasses off. So
your eyes are visible. That's really important.
I didn't ever really think of that. And right now I kind of want to throw that on the table. As parents, what can we do so that when we are meeting kids and parents, friends, and their sons and daughters, what can we do to help make sure that those first introductions are cool and safe and do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, absolutely, because one of the things that I have made a point of doing, and I would say I started to do about 5 years ago, is every time I meet a person that is smaller than me, I try to come down. Like literally it means I'm bending down, I'm on one knee, but I'm looking them in the eye. And
you do that a lot. You do that a lot with me whenever so I appreciate that.
No, but I do. And I think, because even when we talk about the handshake, like I'm sure there's some of our listeners going, oh, come on. Like a handshake is just a social nicety. It's a way of demonstrating respect. Well, you know what? If you want your kids to demonstrate that, sort of, formal, informal, whatever demonstration of respect, or like it is good to give a proper handshake, at least explain that. Like just telling kids, oh, go give so-and-so a hug or go and shake so-and-so's hand without saying, well, actually it can be a show of respect when you're meeting someone to look them in the eye and say, good to meet you, and to give them a good handshake. But then you're giving them the tools to know how to do that and understand what they're doing so that when they engage, it is on their own terms, not just sort of a rote, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Because we have to remember as parents that when we put our kids on autopilot, well, this is what I'm supposed to do to make so-and-so happy. This is what I'm supposed to do to be polite. All of their thinking and their intuition about engaging in that moment in a way that feels safe and appropriate goes out the window.
And comfort, so that they can feel comfortable. You want them to be able to, like you mentioned, if they're meeting people, we're meeting families for the first time, ask permission. I mean, that's a really important thing. Ask permission. Is it okay if I shake your hand? And if you teach your children to ask permission of others, then they can do that for themselves. And they can say no. Ask them about what's comfortable for them. Is that comfortable to give so-and-so a kiss or even shake their hand? No? Do you want to just wave or blow a kiss? You want to check in with them and see what is comfortable for them. Permission is really important because are asking your child to help others that are in need. Because if they see someone that maybe is being bullied at school or doesn't have friends, to be aware of that. And they can notice when someone's not in a good place or hurting. And when a child is taught that, they can use those same skills for themselves.
One of the things that you brought up, Dr. Patricia, was even when you're roughhousing with your kids, we're on the trampoline and we're tickling each other, or we're roughhousing downstairs or whatever. Let's talk a little bit about that, because the lessons can even be learned there. Tickling can be a great example of what you're saying. When someone says stop, stop.
Sure, you're wrestling, playing. When a child says stop, you need to stop. Because often we'll go on and stop, and as parents, we think it's funny or cute, or we just want to tickle them. I mean, there's no ill intent, but we really have to listen to what our children
But that's a
say.
moment for a lesson to happen.
Absolutely.
Well, and here's how far that lesson can go, because I think tickling is such a powerful example, because what will often happen is the kid is saying, stop, no daddy or no mommy, but they're giggling, and then you stop and they kind of want you to tickle them again because it's become this game. And that's an opportunity to say, when you say no, I'm going to stop because it is important that you know that no is being taken seriously. And so I'm going to listen to that, and you should expect others to listen to that as well, whether they're tickling you or they're touching you in a way that you don't want to be touched or whatever.
That's so important, Anea, because to teach them that no is no and yes is critical.
I want to drop into that right now.
Absolutely.
Because what you were saying right there, I visualized, hey, it's tickling today. Tomorrow it's making out with your girlfriend, making out with your boyfriend.
Yes.
Hey, stop, don't stop, back and forth. Let's dive right into that, learning at an early age the difference between yes and no. And I know right now some people are like, what are you talking about? Yes means yes, no means no. But it even comes down to the way that I feel we communicate with our partners at home. We communicate with our sons or daughters. If I say, hey, man, I said no video games, and they keep grinding me, which happens daily, and I say, okay, you can, they grinded me so much, I said yes. Is that showing them that, hey, he said no, but I grinded him enough,
Absolutely.
now he's saying yes. Dive into that, Dr. Patricia.
Parents need to be consistent. No means no. How many times have we been in a grocery store line, and we get to the checkout counter and
where they have all the
candy
stuff.
and all the gum, and they're crying, and we just give it to them because we don't want to hear it anymore. We just get exhausted. You got to stand tough because this is when you're teaching them.
And here's
yes
the thing.
Means yes, no means no.
That's right. And I think that, one of the things, because there's the overt messages, like that example is quite an overt message. And then there are the ones that are much more subtle. And the reality is that in our society today, we still, for the most part, teach little boys that to be part of the acceptable man box, that means you keep pushing. Somebody says no, you try harder to get what you want to get. Well, that becomes really problematic when you apply that way of thinking to an intimate situation where a boy, understandably in some cases, has not learned under any circumstances. If she says no, it means no, and I need to adhere to that. And that she also understands that she absolutely has the right to say no and not feel like that's going to mean, because this is what I hear from the girls I work with, I didn't want to say no because I thought he wouldn't like me. I thought he might not want to be with me again. I thought he was going to go to the girl that would say yes. All of those things are part of, now we're jumping ahead, but this is what we are preparing our kids for. If you think you're going to wait until they're 12 and 13 years old and their hormones are raging, and then you're going to start to teach them that yes means yes, no means no, and there's a language of consent.
Absolutely.
Forget it.
And that's today what I really wanted to tackle was, let's give our kids the opportunity to learn and educate ourselves as well as them, so that when they roll up to the teenage years, which some of our listeners are at, they're able to speak out for themselves. One thing that, when you said saying no means no, and the work harder till you get a yes and all that, one of the things that popped in my mind right there is something that I just grew up with, and it might just be from being in the music business and working with, my partner and I, Bill, have always said, sometimes no is the best answer. And I remember, we both grew up with that too. Like you're trying to get something, and you're grinding on someone to hey, our band wants to open up, will you? And then they say, hey, man, no. You're not opening for the Ramones. And when you get no, as I was growing up, you go, okay, cool. Now I know not to bother that person anymore. So I think what we're trying to use, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and so it becomes a guide.
Yeah, I'm speaking more for the parents out there that do have that, work ethic, and I want my son or daughter, and this goes for the daughters too. Hey, your coach,
don't take no for an answer.
Don't take no for an answer. I think that can apply in a way of, in the context when they're older, for work and certain aspects of their lives. But also, why not teach your kids, hey, sometimes no is the best answer, because what does that mean? You're not wasting your time anymore, and you stop. But when you go back to that analogy of being in the grocery store, and the children see mom or dad, and the child start begging, I want this, I want that, and they finally say yes, and they give them something. Does that also, and I'm going to scoot forward, does that sometimes put a person into a place where they consent to have sex, just like, oh God, enough, this person's all over me.
Absolutely.
Boy or girl, the boy all over the guy, and the guy's like, I'm not ready for this, but all right, enough. Like you're so on me, I'll just do it to do it. Because why?
And because as for a boy, and I need to say this, because lots of people are like, oh, she's always about the girls, but for boys, let me tell you, there are a lot of boys that feel like they have to engage sexually before they're ready, because if they don't, that means that they're going to be called a faggot. That means that they're not enough of a man.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, and that's also problematic. So I think early on, you know, teaching boundary setting and we in Real Girl, we talk about the gifts of no, like how getting information from another person is actually going to guide us in what our next step is, as though we're kind of on this journey and, oh, like, no, there's a stop sign there, or there's a roadblock. I need to go this way, and who knows where that might take me instead.
Gifts of no. I love that.
Yes.
That's it. I've never even heard that term.
That's
and I've been
that's
sitting
a
in a
Real Girl
room with
thing.
you for,
Telling you.
gosh, gifts of no.
The gifts of no. Yeah.
Dr. Patricia, really quick.
Sure.
First of all, I love having you here.
Thank
Gosh,
you. Love
amazing.
to be here.
Came with notes. I love when a guest comes with notes. This is an important topic. I want to ask you a
Sure.
question. So we've kind of stirred a million different topics in here, but we're really focusing on the young, the kids, boys, girls in that early age before they kind of hit adolescence, like
Sure.
Anea brought up, and everything's rolling. They've already had those conversations. How early can you start the conversations with your son or daughter that we're talking about right now?
I believe as early as a year old,
Okay.
they start having some understanding. And developmentally, that's really important, because as children grow, they understand different things. But you can even teach a young child colors, like safe words. That, red means stop, green means go, or red means no, green means yes, slow down, yellow, like the lights. Whatever language that is age appropriate is what we want to teach our child. Sometimes they don't get the concept that no is no or yes is yes. I mean, we're barely understanding that with this affirmative consent. What exactly does that mean? We have to look that up. And that's for older children. So if we're trying to teach the younger ones, we have to do it in a way that they understand. If they're younger, it's going to be through play and colors and games, and as they get older, developmentally, then we can use conversations, charts, words. So we really have to look at the age of our child and work with them appropriately before we get into, good touch, bad touch, body parts, all of that. It's so important to empower them and instill confidence that they have a choice, even at that young age. They get to decide what works for them, what's safe and not, obviously with our parental guidance.
And I think we also have to mention, because it always comes back to this, we also have to be really conscious of what we're modeling.
Absolutely.
So that we are demonstrating those examples repeatedly. Again, they're on the front row seat. We are on center stage as parents, and we always have to be conscious of, so what do they see? Are they seeing me set healthy boundaries? Are they seeing,
Absolutely.
me be respectful of other people's no's in the world, as they watch, my partner and I interact? Are we demonstrating healthy communication that is respectful of no's and yeses and so on? I mean, that just goes every bit as far as the more overt teachings, I believe.
Absolutely. How often I'm a parent, and I've used this term several times when I would tell my daughter, because I said so. What does that model? That's so unclear, and that's so conflicting and confusing for a child. So what does that mean?
It means that somebody who's in a position of authority really doesn't have to have a good reason.
Absolutely, and that is something that we use our, that, like I said earlier, respect for our elders. Our children should be seen and not heard. That was something that I grew up with. Like, we don't have a voice, and what we want or need doesn't matter. So if we're looking to adults, not all adults are going to be, appropriate with children.
Anea, I'm going to throw it over to you really quick with dealing with the teens that you deal with. And you mentioned earlier that you said, everyone thinks I'm all about the girls. I feel that you've spoken for the boys, because I know now you're working with a lot of teenage boys
as well,
as well as teenage girls. So it's definitely mixed up. I got to ask you a question. When you're dealing with any of the young women or young boys that have found themselves, unfortunately, in a situation where something bad has happened, and you kind of are breaking down how that moment actually happened, are there any things that some of the kids say to you, like, gosh, I wish I would have, like you said earlier.
I wish I could have spoken up.
Okay.
I wish a lot of it has to do with being fearful of what the outcome will be if they use their voice to speak up on their own behalf. So I gave the example earlier, sort of more in a sort of teenage, I didn't want him not to like me, or I didn't want her to think that I was gay if I didn't go ahead and do it.
Wow. So you're a teenage boy, if he doesn't have sex with a girl, She's all over him. He's afraid that people are going to think he's gay.
Absolutely. That he's not demonstrating, because we have, and I've talked about this before on the show, we have these very distinct, like the man box and the woman box. And we still have these incredibly powerful sort of gender normative expectations of, if you are to be an acceptable man in the world, you will behave in the following ways. You will be sort of emotionally disconnected. You will only demonstrate anger. You will be sexually aggressive, in charge, blah, blah, blah. And for girls, it's a lot about, you will be pleasing. You will make sure everybody else is okay. You're not going to say anything to offend anyone. And then with girls, we have the additional complication of like, be sexy, but not sexual, because and then, which we could do a whole show on, but there's a lot of layers to this that I think that, starting from an early age with language of consent is not going to solve all those issues, but it is certainly going to take our children a long way, both in a, we're going to do a future show on like this applied to teenage kids.
I was just going to say
sexual context.
I want to have Dr. Patricia back for that, because where we're at today, and it was such a great episode of really, and I'm using the analogy, the parenting toolbox, guys, girls, husbands, wives, partners, everyone out there that can hear our voice. We have an opportunity here to put this tool into the parenting box so early, of teaching your children, son or daughter, the opportunity to be an advocate for themselves, to speak out, let them talk about those feelings. I love your color analogy, just having all that, the putting a face, smiley or sad, or how you feel towards those feelings, using those small little tools to really, at a young age, teach them, hey, it's okay if you're not feeling comfortable with someone, go ahead and talk about it, and opening those conversations up. So, and I think this will lead into, would you come back and do the teenage show?
Absolutely.
Because I know for me, a lot, I'm like, oh my gosh, especially with the consent that's going to be taught in high schools, and our listeners out there that do have teenagers, it'd be so great to come back and really focus on that at some point.
Absolutely, because we're talking about empowering our children in all aspects of consent in general life. And what Anea brought up is the bill that's going to be passed is about human sexuality, and to apply these same concepts that we just discussed to human sexuality at all ages is definitely another show.
All ages.
Yes.
There you go. I
all
love that.
ages.
So for our moms and dads out there, that's you too. That
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It starts with the parents.
Starts with the parents. I'm going to get consent tonight from my wife when I get home. I'm going to go, here we go.
May I hug you?
Yeah, that's seriously. But you said that,
Yeah.
and I don't mean consent for sex. I mean just consent for, hey, having those conversations with each other, and it's so important, everybody, because Anea said it best. We are on the front line, and we're mirroring for our children. And so, you know what? And what a great thing.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's a tremendous opportunity. If we can get it right, it really is. We have the lives of our future, decision makers in our hands. And I think too, as a parent, I always go back and I think, what could I have been expending energy on if I wasn't expending so much on healing some of these wounds? And I'm not suggesting that our wounds are also great benefits, but I think that if we can help our children with this one and avoid them finding themselves in a position that could literally create a lifelong wound, we are giving them one of the most important gifts we can possibly give them. And even in terms of just daily navigating through their lives. And
shout out to all the parents listening to the show, because this topic right here, we have a lot of fun on the show, but this is such an important topic, and you have the opportunity right now to possibly have those wounds not happen for your children or children around you or any of those people in your lives. So it is a great opportunity right now to do something like that. Dr. Patricia, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And you'll come back again. I want to tackle the teenager consent, everyone consent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You'll come back for that. Okay, cool. Also, anyone that wants to hit us up, like I always say, radparenting@gmail.com. Anea, anything you want to talk about before we split? Got everything?
No.
Yeah? You feel good?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm really excited about 2017 and
Yeah.
doing some more really great shows.
Absolutely. It's gonna be good.
But you know what I will say?
Yeah.
I will say, get out, parents. The other thing that we have tremendous power is to use our voices in our schools. So California is coming online with this new law. If it is not yet in your state, or there's not a bill that's been drafted, this is something that is really worthwhile. And as a parent, it was even something you could talk to your children about, the fact that you're doing, that you are writing a letter to your representative and saying, look, we know this is going down in California. When are we bringing it to our state? This is important, and an important educational
Putting the
component.
spotlight on the bill.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Draw the
And
attention to it.
All parents can check consent.com and see where their state is in the process of getting their bill passed.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia.
welcome.
I'm Joe Sid with my co-host
Anea Bo.
and our guest, Dr. Patricia, and we are out of here. Late.